Welcome to the Deep Dive, your shortcut to cutting through the noise and really nailing down the actionable intelligence you need. Imagine this. Your entire production grinds to a halt. Why? Because a tiny, low-cost component from, well, a single overlooked supplier suddenly isn't available. It happens more than you think. And that's exactly why today's deep dive into supplier segmentation is just so vital. We're drawing from Supplier Segmentation, a strategic procurement guide to show you why treating all suppliers the same is, frankly, a recipe for wasted time, higher risks, and definitely missed opportunities.
It's fascinating, actually, how much value is just sitting there waiting to be unlocked, simply by knowing who your suppliers truly are and tailoring how you engage with them. So today we're going to unpack what supplier segmentation really is, why it's such a strategic game changer for procurement. We'll look at the most popular models out there, and importantly, walk you through how you can actually implement it step by step. Our mission here is to arm you with those key insights, the nuggets you need to elevate your whole procurement strategy.
Okay, let's unpack this then. At its core, supplier segmentation. It's about classifying your suppliers, putting them into distinct groups. Why? So you can manage them differently based on how important they are to your business. Think of it like this. You wouldn't treat every customer exactly the same, right? So why would you do that with the partners who are critical to your operations? And it's more than just categorizing. It's about preparing your teams, reviewing those segments, spotting opportunities, and ultimately developing tailored, effective agreements.
And that raises a really important question. Why is this so critical for you? Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, doing segmentation right transforms procurement. It stops being just about keeping costs low. It becomes a strategic driver of real business value. You get much better resource allocation. No more spending hours and hours on a low-value supplier while maybe neglecting a mission-critical one.
That makes sense. Wasted effort is a killer.
Exactly. And here's a key insight that often gets missed. Segmentation proactively identifies single points of failure, vulnerabilities. Our source, it actually details how many companies have been absolutely crippled, not by their biggest suppliers, but by these seemingly insignificant bottleneck vendors. The ones with the unique part that suddenly stops their entire production line. So segmentation isn't just about managing the obvious big guys. It's about uncovering those hidden vulnerabilities too.
Okay, so risk mitigation is huge here.
Huge. Plus, you improve collaboration with key partners for innovation, and you optimize costs because you can differentiate your negotiation tactics. A strategic supplier providing, say, 70% of your core raw materials, that demands a very, very different approach than your office stationery supplier, obviously.
Right, you've highlighted the strategic why perfectly there. So for our listeners who are now thinking, okay, I get it, this is important, the next logical question is how? How do I actually start doing this?
Yeah.
What are the main approaches outlined in our source for, getting it done?
Well, suppliers can be classified in a few ways, maybe by product or service type. But the most powerful classifications often group them into quadrants. Something like the Kraljic Matrix is a prime example. And the classification, it also depends on factors like, how much you spend with them, the complexity of the product or service, even the breadth of your supply base overall. You could segment just by spend or by risk, performance, strategic value. Each has its pros and cons. For instance, spend-based segmentation, it gives you quick prioritization, easy win sometimes. But, and this is a big but, it might completely miss critical non-financial risks. Whereas looking at strategic value really focuses you on building those crucial long-term partnerships.
Okay, so Kraljic Matrix, you mentioned it's probably the most common.
Yeah, here's where it gets really interesting for practical application. The Kraljic Matrix. It's definitely the most widely used model. It groups suppliers into 4 quadrants based on 2 core dimensions. One is profit impact, basically, how much value or cost that item contributes to your business. And the other is supply risk, which measures the likelihood and potential impact of disruptions to that supply. How hard is it to replace them? The Kraljic Matrix, it's endured for decades because it forces this fundamental shift in perspective. You stop asking just, what are we buying? And start asking, how critical is this supplier, this item to our actual business? It's really a strategic framework for putting your attention, your resources, where they truly matter most.
Can you quickly walk us through those 4 quadrants?
Sure. First, strategic suppliers. High value, high risk. Think the car manufacturer's custom battery supplier. Critical stuff. Management here. It's all about long-term partnerships, joint planning, continuous performance reviews, even collaborating on innovation, deep relationships.
Okay, high value, high risk. Strategic. Got it.
Then you've got leverage suppliers. High value but low risk. Think bulk steel or maybe paper suppliers where there's plenty of competition. Management, it's about using that leverage. Competitive bidding to optimize costs. Get the best deal.
Makes sense. Use the market.
Third, bottleneck suppliers. These are tricky, low value, maybe low spend, but high risk, like a specialized spare part from a single tiny vendor somewhere. Management focus here is securing supply. Maybe buffer stock. Definitely developing alternative sources if you possibly can. Reduce that risk.
Right, those are the ones that can bite you unexpectedly.
Exactly. And finally, routine suppliers. Low value, low risk. Your office stationery, maybe cleaning services. Management. Keep it simple. Efficient processes, minimal administrative overhead. Don't spend a lot of time here.
That matrix provides a really clear framework.
Yeah.
But, what's a common trap people fall into when they try to use this? Does a supplier sometimes seem to fit into more than one box? Or maybe it feels like a ton of work, especially for a smaller company?
That's an excellent point. Yeah, it can feel complex sometimes. Think about your own household budget, maybe. You manage your mortgage, that's strategic, right? Very differently from your weekly grocery shopping, which might be more leverage. Or that one quirky online store for a very specific hobby item. That could be your bottleneck. Versus, say, your streaming service, pretty routine. The principles are kind of universal, but yes, applying it formally takes effort. A really common mistake is relying only on spend beta, just looking at the dollars. That ignores those critical non-financial risks we talked about. Another trap is overcomplicating the model, making it so complex nobody uses it. Paralysis by analysis. The guide really advises keeping it simple, especially at first. Let it evolve. And critically, involve your stakeholders early on. Get buy-in.
Involving stakeholders, that sounds key. So bringing it all together, what does this mean for your actual workflow? How do you put it into practice?
Right, the guide gives a pretty clear step-by-step process. First up, collect comprehensive supplier data, not just spend. Performance metrics, risk factors, all that jazz. Then, you need to define your segmentation criteria, what actually matters for your business. Next, group your suppliers using your chosen model. Maybe Kraljic, maybe something else. And crucially, like you said, validate this. Talk to stakeholders, finance, operations, engineering, maybe.
Yeah, like planning a complex trip, you wouldn't just map the route yourself, would you? You'd check with your travel companions. Does this timing work? Is this destination what you expected, to make sure everyone's aligned? Avoid surprises down the road.
Exactly that. Great analogy. From there, you develop those tailored strategies we talked about. Deep partnerships for strategic suppliers, streamlined efficiency for routine ones, and so on. And really important, remember to review and adjust regularly. Markets change, your business needs evolve, suppliers change. It's not set and forget.
Okay, fantastic. So today we've taken a deep dive into supplier segmentation. We've seen how it transforms procurement from, just a transactional function into a real strategic driver of value. By understanding and applying models like the Kraljic Matrix, you can direct your resources where they truly matter most, uncover those hidden risks, and foster genuinely collaborative partnerships.
And stepping back for just a moment, it's vital to grasp that effective supplier segmentation, well, it isn't really a one-time project. It's more like an ongoing journey, continuous improvement, which raises an important question for you, the listener. How will you begin to reevaluate your current supplier relationships through this lens, through the lens of strategic importance and risk? How will you ensure your resources are always aligned with your business's core objectives? And critically, how will you uncover those hidden vulnerabilities before they become critical disruptions?